Hello everyone, it is Elliot Reid from the Revitalize Health and Fitness Clinic, where we've helped over 6,500 individuals become pain-free, mentally well and physically fit. Now, today I have a very, very interesting patient of mine, Rachel Greer, who is a contemporary dancer and dance teacher, and you're based out of South East London, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Now, Rachel's got a very interesting story because she came to me after suffering from a chronic hamstring pain or a chronic hamstring strain after quite a long time of trying to deal with it herself and going to other practitioners with the same complaint. So what I'll do is I'll pass it over to Rachel. If you'd like to introduce yourself, especially what your passions are, tell her what you really like to do and where people can find you, and as well as that, obviously a bit about your injury, please.
Yeah, of course. So thank you for the introduction as well. My passion has been for a long, long time dance and also fitness as well. So mostly now, after graduating professional dance college, I teach dance, particularly to youth, and also online personal coaching and group exercise classes within like the fitness spectrum, the fitness side of things. And yeah, both of those two things are my passion. Absolutely, they take over my life, and I'm happy about that. In terms of my injury, I got that. I think it was about either 5 or 6 years ago now. And I got that in my final year of university. It was a hamstring tear, and it, should have healed within a certain amount of time, and it didn't. So I ended up taking a year off university. I just went home. I saw a couple of physios at home, and nothing really was resolved with it. The pain went, and I was able to go back to university. No one knew how the pain went. There was never really any kind of definition around what it was for me, or for them, any of the physios, I guess. And it went. It came back. It came back again. I'm not entirely sure how. Within my last year, the repeated year of university, and I tried to do all the same stuff in my year off, and it just didn't help. And that went on again for probably like another couple of years. Again, I saw a couple of physios, osteopaths. They found they couldn't find anything, and then recommended yourself.
Just from an osteopathic perspective, our aim is to try and remove the barriers between that person and where they want to be, like therefore
Yeah.
recovery. From that period, can you, and obviously going over the pain education that we were spoken about before as well,
Yeah.
is it easier to make sense as to what might have been holding you back during that time, or do you feel like it's still a mystery?
No, I think there's a lot more. I realize now there was a lot of kind of um like you're saying, the mental barriers around it, and a lot of identification with that injury. Like, that was my injury. I had an injury, and everything was around that injury, everything I did. And it was like that for so long. I literally felt as if I identified with that. Yeah, does that answer the
It
question?
does. I'm going to pry a bit deeper, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Did that identification serve you in any way? Was it in any way an advantage? In any sort? Was it? I'll leave that to you, and you tell me.
It made me go a little bit deeper into finding out how to get rid of it, but mostly I think it held me back,
Mm.
because I didn't necessarily know what had um, made it go away the first time. I was still so conscious about having an injury that when I went back to university, my whole year was still focused around trying not to get injured again. And one that held me back from, performing my best, I think, across the year, but also about, attachment onto that injury in that sort of sense.
We quite quickly started to, I suppose, give you fake barriers. So rather than using, I'll explain it. So when you're guarding a muscle, you contract it, And a lot of the work which we did was to make sure that you could utilize your hip and utilize your knee without having that, what would be, if it comes on too soon, it's early, it's a premature
Yeah.
contraction.
I was no idea.
A lot of the work we were doing was to try and reduce the premature contraction of your hamstrings. So for example, kicking for your high kicks, putting a band in place where you can whip it and things like that. How there was that, we stuck to that form of intervention as well as pain science and as well as that strength and conditioning, which I know that you've used to massively benefit your own dance and also some of your clients' dance as well. So can you tell me about what you found was most effective about the process that we went through?
Yeah. So first of all, like literally from session one, it was like the permission to actually do it, to actually go for it. You know, I think it was literally session one where you said, no, just go for it. Obviously don't, you know, if it's super painful, don't, you know, go into that. But within like a certain range of like pain, like push for it, because the injury wasn't there. And like we knew that. So
Just
I felt,
how did you find that though? Because because for me to tell you that you've dealt with this for 2 to 3 years and it's been a significant hindrance on your life, for me to tell you that, well, it's actually recovered, but you're dealing with just the pain. How did that make you feel? Because for a lot of people, that could fill them with quite a lot of conflict.
well, yeah, it did fill me with conflict, but I think the most I felt was relief.
Okay.
Because I knew that it wasn't, I think, yeah, deep down I knew that it wasn't there, but it was like I just needed the permission to go for it. And I'd seen so many people before, you know, coming to you, that I was so willing to just do anything and like trust in, you know, professional opinion to do things anyway, to kind of get rid of that pain. So the most I felt was relief
Awesome.
to be able to do that. Yeah.
Sorry, please continue. I interrupted you. You were talking about what you found most effective.
What I found was effective. I mean, the exercises I think were super effective as well. And I mean, I just think everything was. I mean, I'm where I am now, so I can't complain about any of it, if that makes sense.
Cool. There's one thing which I was really interested to ask you. Now, when we as osteopaths train, and it's the same for a lot of physiotherapists and chiropractors as well, we study anatomy first. And what that can sometimes mean is that we're over anatomical with how we're explaining pain to the patient. Now, what this can sometimes mean is that rather than keeping their eye on the process, which the process might be strength, desensitization, sometimes the focus can shift to the anatomy in an unhealthy way, i.e. a hamstring, scar tissue, strain, grade 2 strain, all these things. I was quite quick to take that out of the equation for you because I felt that your picture of pain had been overly anatomized, for the lack of a better term. And I was wondering whether or not, retrospectively for you, that helped, or whether or not as well you had found that because people might have used anatomical definitions for you, that it was kind of distracting you from the way out.
Yeah, I think looking back now, that was probably a good idea, because you know, you got me to do a video diary of like my dancing in a way, and notice things from more of like a movement perspective, which was very like something I could relate to as progress. So it took away not having that like anatomical aspect, which was something I had focused on for like however many years. You know, initially it was a hamstring tear, and that was what I took, you know, with me. And then people were trying to find out, oh no, you need to do this with the hip and like this with the hamstring, and all of that kind of stuff, whereas you brought it back to like a movement perspective. So I think that was really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
To simplify it, did it help to simplify it for you, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Awesome. And just to clarify, you're now pain free.
Yeah.
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 Okay, very
Yeah.
good, very good. There was one more thing I wanted to ask you, wanted to ask your perspective of it,
Mhm.
because your functional ability, your ability to load that hamstring was huge for a long time before you could actually dance pain free. So as far as I'm aware, let's have a look. Your last appointment was the 9th of September. So it
Mhm.
took about 2 to 3 months after your last appointment to reach that pain-free state. Now, on the 9th of, I think that's correct, on the 9th of September, yeah, you were able to do your straight leg deadlifts, your reverse Nordics, your pike hip flexors, your Nordics, single leg straight leg deadlifts, all of these fantastic things, loading up the hamstring hugely, you're able to do before you can actually dance pain free. And I was wondering if retrospectively you can think of why there might have been such a strong coupling of your pain and dance.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think because I did the injury when I was dancing,
Mhm.
um, as well. So, well, that's such an interesting question that, and I'm not sure I can necessarily answer it. The only thing I can think of really is that I, I did the injury in a dance class, um, and even throughout like strength training, supplement training on the side, even though I could still feel the injury sometimes when loading up the hamstrings and things like that, it didn't stop me from doing it, but it did stop me from being in dance class, and it did stop me from dancing myself. And I guess that's where like the pain was associated like with. I'm not yeah, I'm not too sure about that one.
Would you draw any connection to the emotional load? So obviously,
Oh
I
yeah.
take it that emotionally you feel a lot more when you dance in comparison to when you weight train. So
Yeah,
I would have
yeah,
thought,
of
right,
course.
so it's your main source of enjoyment, love, passion, identity. Um, would you say that because the injury was so emotionally weighted on something which was so important to you, do you feel like that played a part at all?
Oh, huge. I literally, in my year off and afterwards, I think even when I came to see you, I think I cried in a session one time as well. It literally felt like that first year that I took off felt like a complete like identity crisis, because I'd pinned so much of my life on that. Having an injury was like, I don't know, it just shook everything up.
Were there any techniques which you used to try and because sometimes when the outcome is so emotionally loaded, that can upregulate pain. So, for example, if I'm about to go for a very important win or very important move, which I know I'm going to be judged heavily for, but by myself and by my peers, but I know I've got an underlying ankle injury, that can upregulate pain because pain is a protective response, and our bodies are trying to protect us um, from, I suppose, missing out on something which is important to us, which is a bit of a paradox, but that's the body for you. So I was wondering if you had any tips or techniques which you used to try and, I suppose, become a bit more stoic or desensitize your emotional attachment to the outcome.
Yeah. Um, Tips or tricks. I think trust is definitely one of them. I think it definitely helps to trust you when I was going through that, and trust the process in a way. And also as well, I can only speak from like my perspective, but I definitely noticed when I didn't focus so hard on recovery, then it definitely made the whole process easier.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, when everything wasn't so, injury centered, it definitely made it feel easier.
Amazing. That's interesting. And that comes back to you focusing on it being about movement and not being about
Yeah.
rehab per se. Or because you
Yes.
definitely took a very progressive approach to your rehab. You viewed it as conditioning, strength, becoming a better dancer rather than
Yeah.
just rehabilitating that injury. That's very interesting. Thank you. I've got
No.
one more, I've got one more question. So like I said, there was a bit of time where you're almost there. From my perspective, you're almost there. I think for you, it probably seemed like you were miles away from you achieving your goal. But from my perspective as a practitioner, you're almost there. So I was wondering what happened between, say, September and December, or September and January, because it sounds like something clicked. But I didn't know if there was something deeper to that, if something that you'd encountered.
I think in all honesty, I still continued with like stuff on my own. So the exercises, although not necessarily like doing them every single day, which we didn't do anyway, it wasn't super regular with it. But, it was a difficult time, September to December, but not injury focused. And I think I kind of came away from that quite a bit because of other, just life going on. And in a way, I think that helped it because, literally one morning I woke up and it just wasn't there anymore. Like, my level of pain when it was there could vary so much anyway. It could be a 10 one day and it could be, a 5 the other day. But then one day I woke up and it was just nothing. And now it's just nothing. And I think it was having that break away from, I guess, that, injury focus time was like a major thing.
Awesome. All right.
Definitely.
So almost becoming, once again, less attached to the outcome. And when it comes to your training over those 3 months, were you still doing your strength training and your dancing, and it was just that you weren't focused on the injury? Okay, cool. So that's, you kind of just let go of it, let go of the attachment to
Yeah, I hadn't been dancing so much just because of other things going on, but I was certainly still training, which I view that as still dance, like it's still dance training for me, because keeping strong, keeping fit, keeping healthy still keeps me within that sphere of dancing and things like that. But I wasn't necessarily technique training so much. But it was all just, moving my body focused.
Awesome. And then just one last question, mainly for my own feedback. Is there anything which you found, is there anything which caused you to find it easier to trust me as a practitioner?
I think you were just very honest with me from the get-go about, how the treatment was going to go, and things like that. And also like my progression, your thoughts around it, and things like that. I think it was just like honesty.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Rachel, if people want to follow you and to gain your expertise in dance and conditioning, where can they find you?
Probably Instagram is the best. It's Rachie_MacDonald.
That's Mac, not Mook. MAC.
Yeah, MACD.
I'll put it in. Nice. Rachel, thank you so much for your time.
That's
And
all right.
I wish you the best in the future.
Oh, thanks, Elliot.